Fox has touched off a firestorm of criticism after an appearance by Newt Gingrich on one of their shows. Fox News Channel is being accused of censoring criticism of the left-wing extremist and Democrat socialist financier George Soros after this exchange went viral on social media.
Pro-criminal and overwhelmingly elected with George Soros' money, and they're a major cause of the violence we're seeing because they keep putting the violent criminals back on the street.
I'm not sure we need to bring George Soros into this.
I was going to say you'd get the last word, Speaker.
He paid for it. I mean, why can't we discuss the fact that millions of dollars he spent?
I agree with Melissa. George Soros doesn't need to be a part of this conversation.
Okay. So it's verboten.
All right, we're good.
Powerful voices, folks, have weighed in on this. Dick Morris told Newsmax TV that he was shocked by that video you just saw. Bill O'Reilly confirmed that a thou shalt speak no ill of Soros doctrine exists over there at Fox. And talk show host and former Fox star Glenn Beck said this.
I will tell you that George Soros is not to be discussed. It is verboten. You know, when I got down to the end, one of the things at Fox News, they were starting to tell me I can't talk about things. I just talk about this. Stop talking about that. One of them was God. One of them was Israel. And the other one was George Soros. How can you be an honest reporter if you won't report the fact, the reported fact, that what Newt Gingrich said is absolutely true? This is why he is so off limits, because what is being done to our country, his fingerprints are all over it.
All right, so I sat down with George Soros expert Glenn Beck, who is also the host of the nationally syndicated Glenn Beck radio program and co-founder of The Blaze Media. Here's how our conversation went. I want to welcome to the program Mr. Glenn Beck. Glenn, welcome back to the Chris Salcedo Show.
Thank you. Thank you, Chris. Good to be here.
True story. We were sitting around talking about this story after it broke. One of our team said, well, who is the foremost expert out there on George Soros? I said, without hesitation, Glenn Beck. So you've done so much research and reporting on this. It's hard to confine it to a 7 or 8 minute interview. But give us the Cliff Notes version of Soros and his malign activities and why Americans should care about this.
So George Soros, in some of the things that I find the most disturbing, come from interviews that he did, you can find online on 60 Minutes, where he talks about his desire to change the world and experiment with things, experiment with democracies and experiment with people. And he has caused chaos in markets and collapsed markets around the world. He's not welcome in, I think, 3 different countries. He is an enemy of the state in 3 different countries. He was just kicked out of Russia. I think Ukraine is thinking about it. Georgia, I believe, just did it. But that wasn't for actually collapsing them. That's because they knew what kind of influence he has. When he was asked about these things, he's so nonchalant about it. At least back then, 60 Minutes interviewed him. He said it's kind of fun, and I know people get hurt or people have their lives upended, but it's really kind of fun. And I feel almost as though he is. Almost so disconnected from reality, it's almost sociopathic. He wants to do what he wants to do, and that is create civil society 2.0, which is what I believe he's trying to do here in the United States. We exposed it in Ukraine. That's what the impeachment was all about. And what he does is he gobbles up the law enforcement. He gobbles up the attorney generals. He gobbles up the district attorneys. If he can't change it in Washington or in the capital of that country, he changes it by going in and controlling who's prosecuted and who's not. Then through his organizations, he begins to siphon money off of the country and puts his people in charge. That's what he was doing in Ukraine. That's what he's doing here in America right now. Newt Gingrich the other night on Fox News, they said about Soros that, oh, we best not talk about him. I remember those conversations where you're not supposed to talk about George Soros. Wait a minute.
I want to get to that here in a I want to get to that here in a second, but I just want to ask, is there any doubt in your mind that George Soros has his fingerprints on the upheaval we're seeing in liberal cities across this country?
Well, zero. He is funding through several organizations the riots and the people that are rioting in the streets through several organizations. There's absolutely no question. We could show you the documentation. I have shown the documentation on air.
Okay. All right. Well, I want to turn to Harris Faulkner, she was the one who didn't cut off Newt Gingrich on their program there on Fox. She issued an apology. I want to take a look at that. Go ahead, guys.
Our guest, former House Speaker Newt Gingrich, who is beloved and needed to be allowed to speak with the openness and respect that the show is all about, was interrupted. Do we debate with fire here? Yes. But we must also give each other the space to express ourselves. As the only original member of the 6-year-old amazing daytime ride known as Outnumbered, I especially want to rock and roll with every voice and perspective at the table. We don't censor on this show.
Okay, so Dick Morris has come out and said he was astounded by this video. Bill O'Reilly has come out and said, yeah, there is a rule there at Fox, thou shalt speak no ill of George Soros. What can you tell us? Is there a rule there at Fox?
I can tell you, absolutely, there is a rule at Fox. Remember, George Soros spent $1 million of his own money to build the very first smear campaign office, that ran 24 hours a day. That's all documented. You can read about it in Cheryl Atkinson's book. You could Google that, and you'd probably find that. When I was at Fox, I've often told the story, but up until this week, I haven't attached the rest of the details to the story. But I've often told the story of being in Roger Ailes' office, and he said to me at one point, "You know what your problem is?" And I said, "No, I'm anxious to hear." He said, "You won't play the game." He said, "Look, we play a game." He said, "Do you think I didn't know Al Sharpton was going to, protest in front of Don Imus's studios? Of course I did. And he needed a pound of flesh. He calls me before, gets a pound of flesh. Then when I need a pound of flesh, I go do something against him. And then we all have dinner at night." And I was so disgusted by that. And I said, I don't want to, it's not a game to me. I don't want to be a part of that. But that conversation was about George Soros. Stop with the George Soros stuff. He is friends with everybody. He's friends, I'm sure, with Murdoch. I don't know that for a fact, but I'm sure they have some sort of business arrangement, and they make money on everything that they do. And George Soros has a lock because he can destroy you. His number 2 guy met with my number 2 guy and called and said, "Mr. Soros has a message and would like to have a conversation with you," the number 2 guy in my company. And so they agreed to have lunch in public, and it was nothing but a threat. They had lunch. The first thing that was said by the Soros representative was, "Your boss is hurting my boss, and it's going to stop." The last thing he said was, "I don't think you understand. The ship has sailed, and you're either on the ship or you're not." And my guy said, "My boss, I don't even have to ask him, is not wanting to be on that ship." And the ship that I believe he was talking about is the ship that we're now seeing, where this Marxist revolutionary ship that is folding right into the world economics Great Reset, folding right into Event 201, all of those things. That's the ship that was sailing. And everybody has to decide now, are you on the ship or not?
Yeah, well, it's sobering to hear it. Glenn Beck, first off, a big thank you. A lot of folks don't know the Chris Salcedo radio show was born on the Blaze Radio Network, thanks to you. So you have my eternal thanks for that.
I've always
and also thank you for making the time today.
Newsmax TV is now America's fastest growing cable news channel. We give you the real news you need. So subscribe to our YouTube channel and give us a thumbs up. If you like this video, share it with your friends. Newsmax TV streams live on YouTube for free. Newsmax TV, real news for real people.